Hey, welcome back to Mind, Body, Soul Evolution. And for this next video, as promised, I'd like to begin sharing about how I have been able to access my own intuition, my intuitive abilities, and other psychic and mediumship gifts with a capital G. Okay. As I promised, I want to begin to share about my particular processes for accessing these abilities, my understandings, and the knowledge I've accumulated over the years through my experience as well, not just from my studies and from literature and books and information I've come across and read voraciously, But aside from that, uh, just the different abilities and gifts that I've experienced, that I've been able to access, different flow states I've been able to drop into and learn about, being in flow, and different states of consciousness that one can access and drop into once one learns how to open their quote unquote celestial eye, or ajna chakra, or sixth chakra, the third eye, quote unquote, right? So once you open this gateway, the third eye, to the other side, to the metaphysical, the above the physical, right? Um, or beyond the physical. That's what metaphysical means. Yeah, once you learn to access and see from different states of consciousness and dimensions, you can then access these abilities more easily. And as I mentioned in my last video, I want to share with you my processes, because I did say, and this is a correction I'd like to make from the last video, actually. I'd like to start with this correction, because that last video I said I wanted to share about these gifts and abilities that I was born with, many of them, and more which later on, unfolded and opened up for me on this journey, this lifetime, on this path. And that's true, except, it's more accurate to say that I was born with these gifts and abilities ripped wide open. Okay. And the reasons for that, are, I'm not going to go into in this video. I'll leave that for another video to go into that topic. But yes, I was born with many of these abilities like ripped wide open, and I was freely accessing them, many of them. And then, yes, through the near-death experiences that I had, which I've done videos about. If you want to go back and check those out, feel free to do so. I've recounted my two near-death, I've had more than two near-death experiences, but two of which my physical beating heart actually stopped beating and was resuscitated at a hospital both times. So, uh, those experiences, yes, they tend to, much more frequently than not, to rip open these gifts for even further for the individual who has those experiences, because you are effectively being, like, hurled through the veil, and you are launched, essentially, when you're having a near-death experience, which I actually like to call a death experience, because you're experiencing death and you're coming back, but basically you're walking that rainbow bridge, or you're doing that transcendental dance. You are experiencing the traversing of, or through, these frequency gates, whatever frequency gates you travel, or whatever you experience in your near death experience, you got to feel and see and walk the path of the beyond the physical. And so that way, the way to go there and come back, it is more clear to you because you've walked it already. You've done it. So, because of that, I am more able to explain my process or my ways of accessing these gifts. It doesn't make me more special or than anybody else, or more special because I may have been born with these gifts already wide open, because many infants are, in fact, I would say that's actually the more natural state of birth of most infants and most babies, is that they're open, widely open to the possibilities of the existence of these gifts in the first place, which is why they can more easily access them, because they believe in their existence. It's simple as that. And that's a concept I've shared to within my workshops that I've done, and my students I've had and people I've worked with. If I've explained to them how we all really are born with these gifts. They're really, all they are is ESP, extrasensory perception. It's more sensory perception abilities. More abilities, more senses that enable us to then process information about our outer and inner worlds. Okay, and so everybody has them. It's just not everybody knows they have them. So they may as well not have them if they don't believe they exist, And I like to tell my students, it's the equivalent of going to a restaurant and spending a bunch of time and effort trying to flag somebody down to ask for salt, for example, when the whole time you could have just spent a little bit of effort that it takes to look behind the sugar caddy and realize that the salt was there the whole time on the table. so so essentially, that's the how I like to equate it, or I like to illustrate it for people I've worked with, is that the first initial step in accessing these abilities and gifts is just realizing that everyone has them. It's a birthright. We're all born with it. We just don't all uh, know it readily, or many of us are. For many of us, the reality of it is totally covered by societal constructs and norms and belief systems that tell you something to the contrary, that you don't have these abilities and gifts as a natural state of being. Okay, but you do in fact have them. Okay, so yeah, I wanted to clarify that. And so it's just a matter of developing them. And so that's what I'm being asked to share, how to develop them. Okay, and I'd love to do that. But the first things first, hold your horses there, because one of the first things I like to impart to people I'm sharing this information with is, like, to the students I've had in workshops and the people I've worked with. I like to start off by really highlighting the importance of this next concept. Okay, and that is that, you know opening up, developing your psychic and or intuitive abilities or mediumship skills involves you aligning more and more, taking the time and effort to consciously align more and more, and evolve spiritually on your path, on your spiritual path. That's kind of non-negotiable as far as I'm concerned, because I am not uh, happy with seeing people try to develop their psychic gifts or abilities just for the sake of pursuing these powers. For the sake of, like, showing off these abilities, kind of like, that amounts to nothing more, in my opinion, than like parlor tricks. And I'm sorry, but that's not what I teach. I don't help people to learn parlor tricks. Okay, I help and I direct my information that I share with you, it is aligned with wanting to help you expand your consciousness and your awareness, and evolve and learn and grow in that direction. Okay. So if you're interested in just learning psychic abilities just for the sake of like having neat tricks that you can show off, I'm probably not going to be your go-to videos or channel for that. Okay. Because I do not endorse that. In fact, I very much take seriously, and sometimes a little too seriously. I must admit. Sometimes I need to learn how to, let my hair down a little bit more and have a little bit more fun, because I do take it seriously. My duties and responsibilities and my mindful undertaking of the development of these abilities and gifts, because I understand the responsibility that comes along with it. Okay, I understand. Um, I understand that I must also concurrently be undertaking a set of daily self purification practices for mind, body, and soul. Okay, therefore, I mean, that's at the crux of my concept for the channel, mind, body, soul evolution, of course. But it is important in undertaking and going inwardly and really undertaking this mind, body, soul evolution, which, yes, a part of it is to embrace and um, develop your intuitive gifts and living from a more intuitive place. It is also incumbent upon us to learn concurrently how to lead a more, uh, just align more and more with these principles that are more al- divinely aligned, with divine will. Okay, because otherwise you're playing with fire you don't want to play with. Okay, because um, basically you open up to, if you're not taking care to make mindful progress toward developing the self, or to higher ideals rather than living from lower natures and expressing working with these creative forces with an ill intent of some sort, then all you're doing is opening yourself up to potential negative energies coming in and attachment. Yes, this is real, this exists. Possession, this is very real. And so I like to highlight when we first get started in undertaking these studies, that it is very important to understand that if you don't want to dance with the devil, so to speak, if you want to keep the fruits of your magic pure, then keep your intentions pure. Keep your heart. Stay connected to your heart with a capital H, like I like to say, your sacred heart. Right? That's what the capital H makes it for me. Um, and then you have nothing to worry about. You do the work, and it'll continually work to your benefit and for the benefit of all beings. Okay, if you mindfully understand the responsibilities that come with utilizing these abilities and co-create with creative forces. Okay, and I can tell you that this is at the heart. This is something. The fact that psychic, opening up to psychic gifts and abilities is just something that naturally happens when an individual begins developing more in a spiritual on their spiritual path anyway. It is something that does tend to happen. In fact, you see it in many traditions. Like, for example, in the Bible, I mean, it was it's mentioned in all throughout different sacred texts, esoteric texts. You see um, examples of these masters, sages, mystics. And in the Bible, for example, you see Yeshua. He was very much in touch with his psychic and precognitive clairvoyant abilities. He had visions all the time that he shared with his disciples, and he even, like the night before he was crucified, that he was put to death, he saw it and he told them about it. He shared with them that he had visions about it, about his own um, death, his own crucifixion. So. Uh, and you see it in other traditions as well, all over the world. It's not just in the Bible. You see, for example, in Buddhism, His Holiness the Dalai Lama, he confers this. For example, the Kala Chakra initiation is the Kala Chakra Tantra initiation. And no, I'm not talking about sex. He's talking about Tantra in the sense of it's an open, never ending flow of energy. Okay? And Kala Chakra, meaning the wheel of Dharma, wheel wheel of Dharma. So, so the never-ending energetic flow in the wheel of Dharma is the Kala Chakra initiation, which is like one of the basic initial initiations one undertakes in Buddhism, which for many, it just ends up being just like a ritualistic blessing, ceremony of blessings. But for many, it is an initiation onto a path, a spiritual development path. And for those, the Dalai Lama says, he says it during the initiation, during Kala Chakra, he says to not be surprised if the more work you put into it, the more you put into this uh, walking this path after this Kala Chakra initiation, that the more likely you will be to experience certain things in your mystical experiences that begin to open up for you, including clairvoyance and other uh, precognitive senses, as well as other potential psychic experiences. He says this, the Dalai Lama says this when he is doing the Kala Chakra initiations. As you align more and more in your spiritual path, you may begin to have these experiences. Like psychic, precognitive dreams and things of this nature. You may begin to open up to. Okay, so it is commonly known and accepted all over the world in different spiritual traditions that it is it's part and parcel of one's spiritual evolutionary process to, yes, open up more and more to psychic abilities and gifts. Okay, but it's part and parcel because as one grows in their spiritual knowledge and gnosis, begins to assimilate more of the information, of the spiritual information into their being, they earn the ability to access these spiritual and psychic gifts more and more. Okay, so it's kind of that's the way in which it is part and parcel with the path, with the spiritual path. Okay, and so to support that concept, I've chosen two quotes that I want to share with you from two spiritual luminaries whom I have a lot of respect and I'm very grateful for on my path, my own journey. The first of which is Manly P. Hall, who happens to be, I'm so grateful for the fact that he happens to be one of my main guides currently. And this is kind of like a recent development on my own journey and my own path, that he stepped in as one of my main guides and made himself known to me through my dreams and has been assisting me since this past February of 2019. Okay, so it's kind of recent for me, but as of this video, as of the making of this video. But yes, Manly is one of my main guides. If you don't know who Manly P. Hall is, he was a philosopher, researcher, astrologer, spiritual luminary, collector of a massive collection of esoteric and occult texts, which he spent years during his that lifetime collecting and amassing, and then uh, utilizing to found the Philosophical Research Society, which is in Los Angeles, California, currently. And he did this so that he would then be able to uh, share all these esoteric, occult texts and writings with the public at large, so that anyone would have access to this information. So, yeah, he was a great guy. But anyway, there's a lecture. There are many lectures of his recorded that you can find just by Googling here on YouTube, right? You can find a lot of Manly P. Hall's lectures, which are amazing, awesome. But the one that I took this quote from is a lecture called The Psychic Wonderland. And I'll add a link. I'll put a link to it down here. But in this lecture, The Psychic Wonderland, Manly basically talks about, the effects of, when someone first says, oh, hey, I wanna develop my psychic intuitive gifts. I want to be a medium. I want to connect to beings on the other side, loved ones and other beings on the other side. Okay, yeah, I want to learn how to open my celestial eye, my ajna, my sixth chakra. How do I do this? Okay, and when they first start embarking on that journey, it's very much like this effect of like a kid in a candy store, like ooh ah, like all these different experiences and abilities and accomplishments that you read about that other people have been able to attain or reach or do or whatever. And some of them are quite mind blowing, in fact. Okay. And, Manly P. Hall says, um, in this lecture, The Psychic Wonderland, he talks about like right around minute 17, but I'll put the link for the lecture in my notes. He says about these individuals, just setting off on this journey of wanting to develop psychic and intuitive gifts. He says, I believe in the law of cause and effect. The individual who wishes to become a powerful, constructive factor in society, aka a co-creative force, someone working co-creatively with other creative forces, for example, in society, has to cause this through the development and improvement of his own nature. It cannot simply be conferred upon him by some mysterious force or power which he does not even understand. So that makes sense, right? That makes complete, total sense. Manly is telling us that basically you want to be a powerful co-creative force in our society, working with these creative forces, and that's fine. That's great. That's wonderful. Then you must also agree to undertake all the necessary accompanying work that must be done to understand the responsibility that comes with being a powerful, constructive force in our society, using and accessing these creative forces that you must understand in order to work with, right? That only makes sense, okay? And that's a great way of putting it, especially for people who don't necessarily relate to a concept of a god or goddess, but rather can feel into something like a unified consciousness, or unified field or energy that runs through everything. And those are the forces that you're seeking to work with, and those are the forces that you should be seeking to understand and properly align with. So therefore you do the work that you must do to do so in a respectful, humble manner. Okay? And the other quote that I chose, that I selected to share with you, from the other spiritual luminary whom I have a lot of respect for, is Edgar Cayce, the sleeping prophet, whom I've mentioned in past videos. But I really like this quote because I personally have on my journey have connected with and benefited from um, a lot of angelic assistance. I have mentioned it in previous videos again, and if you want to, you can feel free to go check those out as well. Videos that I've discussed angelic visitations, 3 angelic visitations that I experienced in this lifetime, and the connections that I forged subsequently as a result, as well as the paths that I then developed on and have walked since on my journey this lifetime, in strong alignment and connection with Goddess, and the opening up, ever increasingly so, through my own concerted efforts, uh, to undertake daily self-purification practices to purify mind, body, and soul, to remain divinely aligned with divine will, so that I continue to receive this assistance, this angelic assistance from the higher angelic realms. Okay? And the quote that I want to share with you is from one of Kevin Tedeschi. Kevin Tedeschi is the CEO of Edgar Cayce's Association for Research and Enlightenment, and he has periodically gone into the digital library that exists of over 14,000 of Edgar Cayce's recorded channelings and psychic readings from the last century on file, and he has curated information specifically revolving certain topics so that he could then compile it into like a book offering on that topic, on that theme. And one of Kevin Tedeschi's last books of that nature, like that, was Edgar Cayce on angels and the angelic realms. That's the name of the book. And yeah, so he went into the database of Edgar Cayce readings and curated information regarding all the channelings Edgar Cayce did regarding angels, getting help from angels, assistance from the angelic realms, and contact and interaction with angelic energies and forces. Okay? So this quote from Edgar Cayce's work, it says, "What is most interesting is that the choices each of us makes either opens us up to more divine guidance and angelic assistance, or cuts us off from these spiritual resources. Apparently, an individual is assisted from the angelic realms more readily as that person keeps self in alignment with spiritual laws, doing the best they know how." Okay, because we also can't forget that it's not about being perfect, because none of us are perfect. Okay, nobody's perfect. Even the awakened beings, masters, sages, saints, mystics, made mistakes too. They weren't perfect either. They achieved a perfection in the sense that they achieved this union with divine will that that Edgar Casey's talking about here, that if we continuously strive to open up to and align with more and more, as we do so, the assistance we receive in living more intuitively guided lives and intuitively guided assistance and information that comes to us from the higher angelic realms opens up more and more for us, the more we put in the effort to open up to it, open ourselves up to it, to understanding it and to embracing it. So, and that's an actual, that's a conscious decision. That's a conscious decision we all can make. And that is what I wanted to bring your attention to with regards to this first video. The first things we need to look at when setting the intention to develop our psychic and intuitive and mediumship skills and abilities, because we are working with forces that we need to have a deep reverence for and an understanding of, rather than accessing and entering all willy-nilly, or even worse, with an intent to cause suffering or harm in any way to any living being or anybody else, any other, uh, because all, once again, all that does, when you, if you're going to enter into it with those kinds of negative intentions or intentions to add suffering to others, then you can be sure that whether you feel the consequences of it immediately or not, you are incurring that karma, and that is karma that you will then just need to work out eventually anyway. So it is something that just automatically happens whether you think you've gotten away with it or not. So yeah, um, again, um, this video, I hope you've enjoyed this first video, uh, in which I just wanted to begin by expressing the importance of understanding uh, a sense of duty that comes along with these beautiful gifts with a capital G, which, as we exercise our free will and we demonstrate whether we're, intending to either cause harm or suffering to others, or the opposite, relieve harm and suffering of others and help our brothers and sisters out there. That is also karma that's quote unquote good karma, karma that you're incurring consequences that will also be reflected back to you. Okay. And that is amplified often when working with these energies, these creative forces, and these gifts, which is why it's even more important to understand the duty that comes along with it, okay? And your responsibilities as a heart-connected being doing heart-connected work, okay? So once again, I hope you've enjoyed it, and I will continue sharing information about my experiences and my processes for accessing these intuitive abilities, gifts, stuff like that, and psychic development from the vast information that I've accumulated and studied over the years, as well as my experiences. So thank you for joining me, and once again, much love to you all from my heart with a capital H, and see you next time. Love you.